Alrighty then. Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and this is going to be, as you can see, this is Taliesin Evitel's. We played 8.2. Here's tons more new info, not in Blizzard's presentation, ... This is essentially part 2 of my, Bay reacts and talks about and discusses 8.2 stuff. And I thought it'd be cool to do both the dev stream and then my friend's video. But this is going to be a really terrible way to watch this video. If you want to see just what T&E have to say, then please go over to their YouTube channel. They're lovely. Go watch their video. My version is going to have a lot of start and stops because I'm going to play a lot of comment on things and discuss stuff. I did that in the previous one, which was on the actual dev stream. But apparently there's tons more info not in Blizzard's presentation. All right, you beautiful nerds, talk to me. Talk to me.
Hello, Internet. My name's Taliesin.
And I'm Evitel.
And welcome to the most...
Wait. Their names are Taliesin and Evitel?
Orange room in the entire world.
Welcome.
It's so orange.
What do you think?
You look orange, I look orange, the wall is orange, everything's outside is orange as well.
I love it. It gives me that.
The problem with talking about these two is that they don't want their real names out there as far as I know. And it's going to take a lot in me to not react to something and say their real names because I don't call them Taliesin and Evitel anymore. So, but I have to for their privacy. But yeah, unless people know their real names, I have no idea.
That orange glow.
Oh, you look so orange. It's lovely because we are in...
Oh, wait, just say Beavis and Butthead? So Evitel is Butthead. Definitely Butthead.
Anaheim, California. What's in Anaheim, California?
Palm trees and the sun.
And Blizzard Entertainment.
Correct.
Can't believe I just had to remind you of that because we were there just yesterday. Now you've probably just been watching someone talking from
yes, that is correct. Thank you, Taliesin.
Anaheim, California, because you have probably just watched the 8.2 stream with
is
Jeremy
correct.
Fiesel and the reveal of 8.2 and Najatar.
Tally,
and
get to the point.
And details about what that's all going to involve.
Yes.
And you're probably thinking to yourself, I have so many questions.
I do.
8.2.
I actually just tweeted at Taliesin.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to watch a load
Answer
of
my
YouTubers
question.
taking their best guesses at the details of all this. Well, I've got good news for you, Internet.
Where's my coffee? Huh? You want to share? Is she going to share coffee with me?
You don't have to watch.
But their names are Bob and Raquel, Bob and Mary, Ren and Stimpy.
Because the reason we are here.
Now wait, Ren and Stimpy. Taliesin is definitely Stimpy. Yeah.
Anaheim, California on Tuesday, and we're not allowed to release this video until Wednesday, is because we, Taliesin
It's Thursday, my dude.
and Evitel, have played 8.2.
Yes, we have.
We were invited up by Blizzard to playtest the PTR.
Yes.
And also to, which is the real reason we're here to be honest, to take part in round table discussions with Ian Hazakostas and Brian Hilinka and the whole Encounter Design team and give our feedback and our suggestions and also...
That's because you're filthy casuals, but you're incredibly charming and very beautiful.
To get all the details out of them about 8.3 as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what we're here for.
Exactly. So in this... Oh, and also to go like this to Ian.
Yes.
Ah!
So we have played the opening area of Mechagon, and the opening island, and seen what that's all about. We have played the last 4 bosses of the new Mechagon dungeon with Sloopbag tanking, and I tried my best to keep him alive as a healer, but he's not a good tank, Sloopbag. I don't care what he says.
Shots fired? Shots fired. Yeah. Poor Ted. Not a good tank confirmed.
says.
We should have gone with just wait.
We
then
should
we
have
would
done-
have been official method
Absolutely,
players.
yeah.
Official method.
You say that.
World first.
You said that. You say that. There were 2 groups playing that dungeon, and we completed it first, which I think gives us the official world first on the new Mechagon dungeon. That's what I'm saying.
think
So
so.
we played that.
But
And
what
we've sat
difficulty
for
were they on?
3 hours talking to the dev team and asking questions about 8.2, and we're going to try our best to get through our initial impressions of 8.2 and answer some of those questions now. Obviously, this is not a scripted video. This is basically just a ramble. We will.
Wait, but I'm reading my lines from the thing you gave me.
That's all Evitel does. Yeah. Everything she says is canned. It's absolutely true.
Oh, no, I'm reading my lines from the thing that Blizzard gave me. Like, remember that big envelope with the money? Yeah. So, like, we are.
I've gotten one of those before. I know what I was talking about.
Kind of preview of everything, with like all the extra details that we know beyond the presentation for the weekly reset, because there will be a weekly reset this week, and it'll be like obviously an 8.2 special.
I don't know if I should react to that as well, just because. I mean, maybe. I probably won't, though. This is not going to be a thing.
And it'd be really, really good.
Unless I post this to YouTube and it's like one of the most successful videos ever, then I don't know. But right now, currently, as I'm sitting in the I don't know.
Don't know if there's going to be any footage in this video. We're still waiting for that to come through. If not, we might just rip it from the actual stream when it happens.
Did they actually
place
rip
it
any
over.
footage?
So it might just be us talking. There might be some footage sort of splattered throughout.
It looks like there's
we'll see.
no
But,
footage.
Yeah, this is going to be like our
It's
initial
just
thoughts,
T&E
and
for an
reactions to
hour.
what we've played and what the
That's
devs have told us.
awful.
And bear in mind the fact that we've been on the PTR, and obviously you guys haven't had a chance to do that yet generally, means not only have we actually played the game, not only have we tried out the cool new mount. Have you seen that, like the mecha bike thing?
I like how Taliesin goes right for the gear mount. I also don't. It's so weird. How can Taliesin talk so long about something that should just be so simple to say, but then keeps finding things to say without actually getting to talk about the things?
Yep.
We basically, everyone logged into PTR, just logged onto that straight away.
Did that.
We know how you get that mount, which not everyone
Answer
does.
my questions.
We have read the dungeon journal of the new Azshara raid and seen some of the bosses and some of the story descriptions that's going on.
Please.
We basically know who the last boss of the entire expansion is now. And we are going to
I mean, we're going to find out next week in the PTR.
A little bit of background as to what this is. We got invited up with other WoW creators as well to Anaheim.
Yes.
We went into the,
Taliesin, please.
the Blizzard offices. We sat down in their very plush theater,
Very
Please.
fancy.
and we watched. Jellyfish
is it
basically
Nazoth?
practice what he's just done on the stream now. So I hope he got it right. I hope there were no big mistakes. We're recording this like a day in advance. So
Yeah.
when he did it for us, it was very good. So we've seen that presentation that you've seen, and then we went out to their testing rooms.
Oh, wait. How? I think I understand what he's saying, that they've already seen the presentation that we just saw, but obviously Jeremy did this one live, so did he do it again, essentially, for them? So, I mean, did he rehearse it live in front of them and then does it again, because obviously not pre-recorded, or was there a different presentation for them? So this is, background information on what this is, because I was not invited, obviously, because I've been home this entire time. This is a media junket, essentially. I went to one for Warlords of Draenor, where I went out to LA to go to the theater, the Ace Hotel and Theater. When I went to the pre-launch event, met Chris Metzen. I made a video about that. It's on my YouTube channel. It's old, obviously. Fat Adam, go for it. But and I went to the Legion Summit, which was the one that got me into a lot of trouble for making a cryptic tweet that wasn't a cryptic tweet. It was just like a hype tweet, but then some people got really mad at me for making it. I was like, okay, whatever. But you see, these are junkets, right? And this is one now for BFA. At least they didn't have one pre-BFA. They have one now because of the state of the game. So I've been to these events before. I went to, again, 2 previous ones. Did not get to be invited out to this one. I would assume just the much smaller size, like 8 people went to this one. The previous ones I've gone to have been dozens of people. So, but the stuff they're talking about and what they get to do is definitely all very on the level that I've seen before or experienced, at least in some way.
and we played the actual game.
Yes, we did.
Not before we got a little tour of the sound offices, and I saw some very interesting words written on boards, which I don't think I can even, like...
No, I did my best to look everywhere without looking suspicious. I was like, "Ooh, this is a great tour."
So there's before we get to the actual sort of Mechagon area and the dungeon itself, there's another thing that people will have a lot of questions about after this presentation.
The Heart of Azeroth
is the new Heart of Azeroth system, and the essences.
Oh, wait. I just realized that Taliesin's shirt is unbuttoned a lot. I probably should go a little bit further. Is that better? I have to make sure that I compete. Is this what you want? Is this now you could look at me instead of Taliesin?
Because they touched on that in the presentation. They gave us a look at the new, unfinished, we've learned, UI for that. That's not how it's going to look. There's actually going to be loads more stuff on it, and which will get added to, obviously, as patches go on as well. And the essences, which are going to be your new kind of, like, essentially traits.
Yeah.
Although they're more like talents, really.
It is. It's like basically like having an additional talent.
Yeah, or two.
Or two.
Three.
Oh.
As you go through. So I know people have a lot of questions about what these essences actually are and how they
Tally,
work
we're
in-game,
6 minutes
and
in.
how you get them as well, and how you can swap them out. We've played it, obviously, and a lot of what
answer
we
the
spent
question.
First, like, few minutes after I checked the dungeon.
You mad lad.
And got on your wheel mount.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh man, that wheel mount. It's got such a good mount special. It's got such a good mount special. It's like the wheel spins round and you do like a backflip within the wheel, and like the headlights come on. There's fire and shit.
The gear wheel mount is straight out of South Park, though. It's so good.
Do you know how you get that? Should I just tell everyone how you get that?
Yeah, tell
now?
everyone how you get that.
You complete the meta achievement for Mechagon for
Which
the
is
island, which means you do everything on Mechagon.
Insane. We'll get to
We'll get to how
Mechagon in a
insane
minute,
that is later on,
yeah.
but I
Okay.
think it's a thing that everyone's going to want to
Sure.
do. So anyway, the essences. When we played the PTR, as I think you guys will when the PTR goes live next week.
No, say. See, I don't know. I would assume it's Tally and not Evitel. But I've been sitting here for going through this already. There's an appendix in the description, knobstick. No, I can't. You can't do a real reaction video to your friend's video that you, of course, preface by saying this is a horrible way to watch their video without listening to the whole thing. You have to do the whole thing. Do the entire video. All right? So I have to suffer through all of your rambling because I'm going to have plenty of my rambling as well. That's right. And I trying to cover up as much of Evitel as possible. So, because we're all only here for Taliesin, obviously. This is why we're here. Even though I had to unbutton my button to make sure I competed. Just so...
We had every essence enabled.
Oh, yeah.
And we had the first 2 slots of the Heart of Azeroth unlocked. You'll have a short quest line when you log on the first time in 8.2 with
a breadcrumb,
Magni
sure,
and the Heart of Azeroth and other characters. You're going to build up a little squad in the Heart of Azeroth chamber.
And what's interesting is that this is happening because Azeroth, basically these wounds are opening up in Azeroth, and essences are leaking out.
I thought that bit.
Yeah. That kind of belong to maybe some Energy Forces, Titans characters, who knows. But yeah, and you're going around trying to kind of stop those, and you're collecting them, right?
Can we get some
Which is what's
ease in
leading
chat?
into Azeroth.
And obviously, like, the more you level up your Heart of Azeroth, the more of these slots you unlock. Now,
I'm also going to try to make sure whenever I pause the video to talk about something, I'm always pausing on Tally and never pausing when Evitel talks. Because she says the real important stuff. Is that...
moment you'll have seen on the picture there's a major slot and there's a minor slot with another minor slot to unlock when your net gets to level 65. Now in between those slots we've been told there will be, like with the artifact tree, just like stat upgrades as well. So there won't be,
so
like,
those are
just
stat
one
up. So these, okay, for context I should bring over images. I'm gonna plop this over Evitel's face. Is that yeah, right? Get her at, there we go. Beautiful. So these little green knobblies, these are stat upgrades. Okay.
upgrade when you get to level 65, there's going to be little ones in between as well, just to keep you, like, so there's a reason to be leveling up your neck and stuff like that, and it's not boring. When I spoke to Ian, I was like, we need an extra one every time your neck levels up. And he was like, well, no, because...
Well...
What did I say? I said, normally, Ian, I'd agree with you, but not in this case. And I got up and I stood like this close to him. I was like, change it, Ian. Okay, that bit didn't happen, but I did challenge him on that.
It didn't happen.
It won't be every level, but that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So these essences... Each essence that you get, and you'll get them from different scenarios, and like there'll be a couple of the more minor ones that you can get through like rep grinds. There'll be one for all the kind of achievements you would imagine. So there's one for PvP, and each there's one for like Mythic Plus Dungeons. There's one for raiding.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is confirming that there is some in Mythic Plus, and they are tied to achievements. Okay, I wonder if the achievements are the harder versions or the higher versions?
And because they each have 3 levels that sort of happen automatically, like the rep ones, you'll get your level 1 essence for getting like honored with the rep. You'll get your level 2 essence for getting revered with the rep. And the level 3 one will be exalted.
Okay.
As an example, because there are many different ways that you can actually get these.
Yeah, so the raiding one would be you get your first level 1 essence when you complete it on normal. You'd get your second one when you complete it on heroic, etc. Actually, the level 3 one you get from heroic. And you get because each one has a level 4 as well, which is a purely visual change, purely cosmetic change.
Wait, that means so if you just did like Mythic Plus Dungeons essentially, and if there are certain ones tied to certain Mythic Plus Dungeons or certain achievements therein, you would just get the whole thing, because the blog post says you can go 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th is the legendary one that says the cosmetic. You don't have to have any of the previous ones. You just get the one, and it's the whole thing. So okay.
Like the power levels got to level 3, but there is like a legendary level 4 one for each one. So if you get if you get cutting edge Azshara,
probably
you'll get your epic like raiding sting, which is just a cool spell effect for that particular trait. So that's how you get them. And obviously as 8.2 goes into 8.3, there'll be new essences coming in and new slots, so you can swap them out. And every essence you get works both as a major essence and a minor essence. So what it does depends on which slot you put it into. Yeah. So effectively, each essence you get has a minor effect and a major effect, and you choose which one it's going to have. So they both have 2 effects, really. Obviously, the major.
So if you get 1 per content type, we talking like 5 or 6 per roll. That's what it sounded like. But again, because you can count 11 or 12 in the UI piece. And if they're tied to essentially doing a form of content, right? If there's like a Warfront one, what can we find out here? It's like we can do dungeon, Warfront, raid, PvP, World Quest, rep. That's like 6 off the top of my head. So
effect is a lot more impactful. So the one that I kind of looked at as a healer was ENR's Seed. Or something, and ENR Seed is like its minor effect when you put it into your minor slot is that there's a very high chance when you're healing people of planting like a healing seed on them, which gives them a tick heal, and if they get damaged, gives them a big heal. Yeah, which is like really great. That's a really nice trait to have, particularly for like Mythic Plus and stuff like that. But if you put it into the major slot, it gives you an on-use effect, so a button press, which is what most of the major effects are. Yes, they are. So they give you an extra button in your rotation, which plants 40 of those seeds shared out amongst your party.
Yeah, now like the major effects are pretty spectacular in some cases.
Yeah, exactly.
And the idea is that the better they get, obviously the more powerful they are. But then you also have that ultimate legendary version of it. Yeah. That is like, say if you're casting a bit of a fireball. So I chose an effect that was basically a fireball because it seemed very straightforward. And it was great. You just throw an Azeroth like ball at someone. Sure. And the idea is that when you reach the legendary level, that will blow people's minds.
Yeah,
right?
the visual effect would be amazing. Yeah. So, I mean, like, imagine
So the thing to take away from this, too, and that visual sense is not only do you get to pick the active that you get to use, the 4, 5, 6, whatever per roll. When was the last time outside of like Warlock Green Fire that we ever got to adjust any spells we had. There were probably some glyphs back in the day that would change how a spell looked potentially, but there aren't really any that do a whole lot of that anymore. There are very few minor cosmetic glyphs in the game, so it's neat that they sort of rolled that all together, because there are some people that, I mean, heck, the one thing about it though, can you use, that's a question. Can you use the legendary version of the epic version or the legendary version, or can you only use the highest leveled one? Because then you can match it with your transmogs.
I'm using the Seed of Eonar thing, and I've got it as my major effect. Now, that's 40 seeds that I send out on that button press. So in a mythic raid, that's 2 seeds for each.
Yeah, can you downrank
really
your
like,
essence?
If you know a lot of damage is coming, they're going to get 2 hits of that when they get damage. If you're in a mythic plus party, that's like,
Ooh,
how many seeds each?
that's a lot.
8. So that's 8 seeds each between the party, which is like amazing. And all of these essences, when we spoke to Brian Hill,
Would that work, or is it 1 per person? I don't know. I guess we have to wait for that's numbers balancing, because those kind of state-based effects, if it's 1 per person or a total amount of up to, I mean, he did say 40, so even in a raid, that's still 2. Huh. Legendary is really cosmetic, so it would probably be like a transmog enchant. Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully that's what I'm saying.
Linker, he said they will work exactly the same in PvP. I'm not so sure they will. I've got a feeling they're going to get changed for PvP. Because
Well,
there's one in particular, which is like
they'll be normalized.
Obsidian shield or something. And it basically, like, if you had that, you just don't take damage or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's one which like allows you to take a fatal hit and things like that. And in PvP, some of those might be a little bit OP.
Yeah, and this is PTR, right? Like, this is all being tested. That's what we were doing. We were testing it, and we had devs over our shoulders going,
totally.
Gotta
Yeah, and seriously, like devs were literally watching us play and go, "What? Why did you do that? And why? How did you feel about that?" And like, which is amazing. Like,
and going, that should not.
I wonder how many of the different. I wonder how many people they met at the dev team doing this, because I wonder what branching people. Oh crap! Evitel.
And dare I say, even better feedback than just sitting in front of my camera at home shouting about how rubbish Blizz is. Maybe even better than that. Maybe even more useful feedback. But like the important thing is the system, like the essences themselves are all very different.
Yes.
Specs that have like a healing spec and a tanking spec and a DPS spec. Like there are essences which are neutral and apply to all specs, such as the Fireball one, because it can affect healing as well, as well as DPS, and that is a huge burst of DPS. Like it's massive. There's another one which its minor effect is that when you're using certain abilities, it reduces the cooldown of a certain ability depending on your spec. So
Uh-oh. So they've got a assurance of consequence, or what the heck was the one from Elisand. The weird part about these is that there are certain classes that really thrive on cooldown reduction. So Convergence of Fate, there you go. That is fun. And we talked about this on the Marksman Hunter show recently about how during that period with the crazy cooldown reduction boots and the Convergence of Fate, when they had wicked uptime on their major cooldown a lot, was very fun. But obviously certain ones, hopefully that's all PTR, will have to take into account which cooldowns are getting reduced, because any spec or class in this regard that has cooldowns that get reduced by things innately and can get reduced in cooldown by something else can get to a problematic state. Can, potentially, maybe.
You were a Beast Mastery Hunter, you played through as. What was the spell that affected?
Aspect of the Wild, I think.
So it reduced the cooldown on that.
Yeah.
And for me, as a Disc Priest, it was Rapture, which is actually a really nice ability to have the cooldown sort of reduced on. And
still
then
cool,
when
though.
you
That's good.
placed it as a major trait, there was a chance, it wasn't a very high chance when you were doing damage or healing, that that ability would actually proc for 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'd be playing in a dungeon, I'd be hitting stuff, and then suddenly Rapture would proc. And I was like, oh, cool. And I was getting out all Rapture like shields and stuff like that. So that's one of those neutral ones. And
if that affects Ascendance for Enhancement Shaman and give us back the gloves from Legion, I'm so in. If it affects Ascendance, in. Hashtag in.
And then there are like role specific, not spec specific, but role specific ones. So
yeah.
there are ones that are only for DPS, and there are ones that, like the ENR one, which are only for healer and only for tank as well.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of differentiation. But the important thing is, they have synergy together. They each have like 2 different uses depending on where you put them.
Yep.
Right.
We were a bit concerned because we had all of them enabled on the PTR.
Yeah, and we couldn't see the actual like progression for
Yeah.
them, right? Or the steps to take them.
But when we asked Ian about it, he said that for the level 1 versions of the essences, he would expect most players to have like 6 in place by the end of the first week.
Yeah.
So like collecting them at a lower level at least isn't going to be an issue apparently. Like they're all pretty, like it will be like complete a mythic plus dungeon.
Now, I don't know if Tally is just going off of a random number, but is 6 significant, right? Were there actually 6 for the role that person was playing? Because I imagine you can only get the ones that are based on your role first if it goes by loot specialization first or the activities therein. Because again, I don't want to be enhancement doing something towards one of these and get a resto one. That would feel pretty shite. So I would imagine notable amount. Yeah, I would hope so. Because if he's seeing that when he could select that many and his recall was that there was about 6 that he could use as discipline, that makes, sure. 6 feels like it'll be enough to get you started and have a few choices. Well, I mean, like there's only would be 6. That's what I mean, right? If there's role agnostic ones and then like the role specific ones, then how many is that in total? That's what I'm wondering. Because so for mythic rating, right? That's what I do on my demon hunter and my shaman. I'm going to want the ones for enhancement that only affect enhancement and the ones for havoc that only affect havoc, right? I don't want anything else. I want to focus on getting those and getting those upgraded. And whatever that path to get those upgraded is the first line of action. The other stuff, like the resto stuff, the vengeance stuff, whatever, those can all happen later on during fluff stuff after whatever. So it's those kind of questions are the very specific ones. How many are there for your role? How many are role agnostic? And what sort of path to unlocking is that going to take for your essences?
Yeah.
Like at any level,
Yeah,
and it'll
yeah.
be like get to honored on a rep and like, you know,
You'll be good.
anything you like.
And because these are working a bit like talents, you know, you'll be able to swap them out. The idea is that they'll probably be like very boss specific.
Yeah, there's
ones you'll
no
want to
reforging
use.
cost. You just need to be in a rested area or have
with a
your
tome.
and it
Sure.
works exactly like
Get your
tomes.
tomes.
Which is actually really cool. So think about it, when like even before you get to level 65 on your neck and have the 3rd one unlocked, you have 2 slots. So you have essentially 2 new talents. Which
pretty
you
cool.
can swap out between like 6 options apparently
Yeah.
by the end of the first week. And they do have different synergies together depending on which ones you use together and which slots you put them in. Basically, it's a really good system.
Yeah.
And it's not just us that think that. Sloot and Just Wait thought it was a really good system as well. So, you know, we'll see how it kind of pans out. And I love the idea of having legendary versions, which are purely cosmetic
Yes.
and are therefore
Yeah.
really hard to get.
Yeah.
Not random to get, just really hard things to do,
Yeah.
which give you this extra kind of. So maybe with the ENR seed one, maybe when I send out my seed, those 40 seeds, maybe there's like some cool vine effect or something, or maybe ENR comes down and goes, have my seed. I don't know, like something like that. But they're all very excited about the fireball one. They say it looks amazing.
Yeah.
No, we didn't see that. But yeah, so I love that. I think that's a really good system. Obviously, the Azerite traits on your Azerite gear are still going to be there. There is new Azerite in the new raid and the new dungeon. And there will be new raid specific and in fact dungeon specific in the
See, this is the one thing that I saw in that post that wasn't explained. So I wonder what Tally is about to say, because there were no raid specific Azshara lore traits, but there were like laser matrix and the archive thing or whatever back in Uldir. They were raid specific ones in the first raid. So this was the one thing that I know it's been come up before in other interviews and stuff, that we're going to be getting raid specific traits again, which goes back to the whole, is Azerite armor reforging cost being removed? Because if you want to use the raid specific trait that's only active in the raid or has some component therein, but you don't want to use that outside, if you have to keep respecking your Azerite armor over and over again, that would be really stupid. So that was really bad before, because you had to do that in Uldir, and that was not great. So please tell me they removed that.
In the Mechagon dungeon,
Yes.
Azerite traits to collect as well. So
Yep.
that is still a thing. You just won't need to unlock all those rings. Those rings will be there. From now on, all of your Azerite like collecting and progression is connected to that neck.
Yeah.
And there will be more stuff on that neck in between those traits than you've seen in that presentation on that UI.
That
But wait, there's more pieces of the UI that we haven't seen yet?
feels pretty good to me.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I think it appears to fix a lot of the things that I don't like about Azerite armor. Of course, Azerite armor is still there, so
Right.
like everything I find annoying about Azerite armor is still there.
It's kind of still there,
But
yeah.
you have this more important system in place
Yes.
as well, and it does feel like talents that you're meant to swap out every boss. You know, like we all need to take a massive hit on this boss, so we all swap to this trait.
Yeah.
Like we
I
all
hope
need to
that's
do,
how
like,
it
some
works.
burst damage on this boss, so we're gonna swap to this trait. And like I think that's really cool. And like
Totally.
by the end of 8.3,
So the treacherous, covenant, seductive power, I think they don't count as specific traits in the same sense. I mean, you could only get them from the raid, I guess, but they work everywhere. However, the ones I mean with like the archive only turning on in the raid, the ones that actually only work in the raid, those are different, I want to say. So yeah, I guess there are themed traits from Azshara lore, but there wasn't anything that was tied to the raid. Yeah. Yeah, they enabled the the reorigination array, which was only in the raid. That's what I mean, yeah. There was none of that in BOD. Yeah, laser matrix and stuff would work, and so would the agility or into strength stacking one. But obviously it was still like the real point of it was to use the buff that you got in the raid that scaled over time. They removed that. Yeah.
we're going to have like 4 of those slots unlocked, the minor slots unlocked, maybe even a new major one as well. Ian hinted, so there are options there. And I think
Another
it's
major
pretty
one
smart.
eventually?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clever. Speaking about how long it's going to take to get those essences, like 6 in the first week,
Right.
apparently,
Right.
if you're playing pretty normally.
Yeah.
One of the things I was concerned about was, and one of the things I asked Ian about straight away was what the, and I'm sure it's something you've thought about as well, is what the schedule for unlocks would be before we get onto like the actual gameplay and things. This is
Right.
one of my big questions in the roundtable, because like as you've seen in the presentation that you've seen, you've got Mechagon, which is this huge open area, not too huge. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, so he's got schedule for the release of the content, not the unlocks of how the essences work. We've moved on. Okay.
It's a little bit bigger than the Timeless Isle, although it's not as vertical as the Timeless Isle. It's a lot more flat, so it's kind of smaller and more compact in a way. And then you've got Najtar, which is huge, like genuinely huge, and is where a lot of the story and stuff like that will be happening. And obviously I asked, like, is it going to be like Argus, where parts of Najtar unlock over the weeks and things like that? Are we going to spend 12 weeks like we did in 7.2 building up to the raid?
Oh,
and
the
doing,
Broken
like,
Shore garbage?
pretty shitty
Please, no.
One-off story quests and stuff to get there. And Ian actually literally just told us what the release schedule was.
Okay.
Mechagon, as in the island, and Najtar will both be open fully on day 1.
Yeah.
The Mechagon dungeon and the Azshara raid at the moment are scheduled to open in week 2.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
At the same time.
At the same time, both of them. So he said maybe it'll be week 3.
Yeah.
Well, he actually said
See how it goes.
with a week either side.
Right.
So it could be like after
okay.
1 week. But at the moment, the schedule is that the Mechagon dungeon and the
that's
Azshara
fine.
raid will both be in 8.2. These are not 8.2.5 things, which is another thing I'm
very
interested about, which we're going to
interesting.
talk about later. Yeah, because what's in 8.25? Yeah. So the raid is going to be opening 2 weeks maybe 3 weeks after 8.2 hits, which is a big deal, because that's when Season 3 starts as well, with all new PvP reveals and things like that. Now, I know a question a lot of you will be asking at this point is about class balance and class change.
Well, class balance, class changes. I mean, a lot of that's going to be really weird because they have to then rebalance all the classes and specs against each other with a fully empowered neck and different actives and passives. It's going to be a pretty large... We're going to have an eye level bump, potentially new powerful Azerite traits, and the Heart of Azeroth essences. So right now, what's DPS? 30,000. I think both my characters sim at like 27k as of recording this, right? Just like pure single target, no garbage, right? Like 27k to get a benchmark. I would not be surprised if DPS goes up to like 40,000 because the jumps in BFA have been pretty large. We started off at what? Not even 12k, and we're at double that now. So we might have almost not a doubling, but a really strong like 50% bump, depending on that, because of the eye level Azerite and the new essence system. It's gonna be weird, and they'll have to then. I mean, it's the same way they had to balance the Netherlight Crucible stuff, because they couldn't just nerf the Netherlight Crucible traits. They had to go in and adjust the class's abilities that interacted with or gained benefit from. But all of these traits seem very separated. You know, anyone uses the Azerite Fireball, they may be able to tweak just that. I hope they don't have to tweak it per class. That would be really weird. Because then again, if they're active abilities, they may also scale and work with different modifiers. So these things come to mind, like Retribution Paladin has wings. It's a flat damage multiplier. Will that affect your essences? Because other specs that don't have multipliers, that are just these multiplicative benefits that would affect them. So I would imagine... either they have to make sure that nothing on your character affects the Azerite power, because certain specs are going to have a very different take on how that works, right? Classes that have multipliers versus non-multipliers are going to find different benefits of different ones that may or may not prove balance issues, and these are the weird bits that I always hesitant about.
Changes as well. Because obviously if new raid is opening, you want to have a bit of time for that. There's not going to be a huge pass of new class balance changes happening in 8.2. There are going to be like tunings and rejigs, but no root and branch stuff. So if you are like fundamentally unhappy with the core ethos of how your class plays, rather than if you just feel a bit underpowered or whatever,
Right.
then it's not going to be good news.
Yeah, sorry.
It's not going to...
That's
There's
fine.
no fundamental changes. But then those essences might give you enough to kind of play with. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think there's going to be enough like rotation enhancing things with all of your... with your 15 rings of Azerite gear,
Right.
and your new Heart of Azeroth stuff as well, that's a lot of extra stuff to be taking on board. So maybe, but I know that's going to be bad news for a lot of people. But I thought that was awesome. The fact that like the whole of Mechagon is open straight away.
Yes.
And we'll get into time gating stuff within Mechagon, because there's like absolutely minimal, and it's more with the way that there's no hard time gating on Mechagon.
No, so it's not like you hand something in 1 week and then it's like, see you next week.
Yeah.
Bring me 5 of those then.
No,
like we've had before, which I think many people found really frustrating.
Yeah, totally.
A little bit.
And the two islands have different ethoses as well. Like Mechagon is very much supposed to be like a grinding island, and there's potential for like essentially never-ending grinding there if you want.
That's Timeless Isle. You could sit on the Timeless Isle for hours. So that is very much part of how that island used to be, whereas Argus, which is more like Najatar, was not.
A lot of people do. Yeah. So awesome. So with that said, let's get on to Mechagon and our first forays beyond just looking at the Dungeon Journal and playing with the essences and our trip into Mechagon itself. Now, we both started Horde characters because we knew we wanted to do the dungeon with Sloop later on. And after we spent like 10 minutes like sorting out all our buttons and stuff like that, because I have like a very difficult, like, a really weird button setup on my keyboard, and I literally have to move all the buttons over one, and oh god, it took ages. And then we went to Mechagon, and then once we realised we had access to the really cool wheel mount, which
and
is
rode
so
around
good.
on that for a little
Listen,
bit.
I know we've gone about this a lot, right? I cannot
it's a good mount.
stress how much I love that wheel mount. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
It's so cool.
I just noticed, so as more news rolls out about this, Slutebag, Ted, he just had a stream highlight of his talking about the Heart of Azeroth, so I'll probably go over those notes at the tail end of this. Just to put it all in one chunk, since they all went to the junket, right? And this is the sort of the junket reaction with my friends here, so I'll roll Ted's stuff into this, because there's a ton of bullet points that were just brought up about this, so we'll go through that too, to sort of dovetail.
Yeah. And then you take a trip to Mechagon, and you get into the island, and you do some quests. You meet up with the prince of Mechagon, because it's his dad that's gone all bad, and Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah.
And you all get led to this
Nice.
hub, which is like your kind of little fortress within Mechagon. And from there, you get sent out onto loads of missions to kind of set up these other machines and kind of turn-ins and like vendors and
This is very Isle of
So
Keldanas
Mechagon
feeling.
is a really cool area. Like, it's really whimsical and magical, and everyone's riding around on little like mech copters.
The weird thing is, I guess the Mechagon gnomes are they're not faction oriented. So Horde and Alliance both. Yeah.
And stuff.
It is so full of character.
It is so full of like character, and when they played a little video clip of it, I was like, oh, I love this. And I'm not even like huge
We don't
on
know,
like
Sandal.
Gnomes or anything, but I'm like, this is
Probably
what I'm
June,
all
July.
about.
Yeah, we all joined the Rust Bolt Rebellion.
Yes.
And like all the dialogue is like exactly what you expect.
Exactly,
Super cute
exactly.
and just really cool.
And yeah, in terms of things you actually do there, so there are little constructions that pop up all over the island, so you can kind of run over to them, donate bits and pieces. There is a more technical name for them in game, although it's something like bits and pieces.
Pretty much all of the mobs that you kill on the island, whether they be like robot mobs or some of the more like the biological mobs that are on there, will drop resources. And there are different types of resources that after you set up the initial quests on Mechagon, which probably took us about an hour.
The only weird part about perpetual grinding areas is it brings back kind of awkward memories of Broken Shore Nether Shard potential and fighting over mob areas and spawns if you're going to be farming stuff, say for Pascal or whatnot. So I wonder how important that stuff will be in the rep grind, because if guild groups take over different phases of Mechagon, that's going to be a little bit unfortunate for other players, but I guess it's sort of the way the cookie crumbles, I guess.
It's basically everything on Mechagon is a hand-in thing. And you'll collect your resources from doing quests that pop up all over the island at different times. Not world quests, but like little kind of quest paths that pop up as you're sort of wandering around and stuff. And from rares, and which we'll get onto in just a minute.
Okay.
Really interesting. And you're basically aiming towards different rewards, basically, on Mechagon. Mechagon is a big collect stuff for rewards island. All of the big story will be happening on Nazjatar. That's where all the dramatic events will happen. Mechagon is your grinding palace, which is what you do when you've played through the story in Nazjatar and you want to come and you just want to kill some shit and you want to make progress on, for example, your cool new cat mount.
Ooh, yeah, a mechano cat, right? I just realized
Jeremy was so happy about this.
I was right away, okay, I'm gonna build my mechano cat now. And then I found a place where you can paint and customize your mechano cat. Anyway,
it's really cool. There's
it
a
is
paint
really
shop.
cool. But as
What's actually funny is, sorry, Evitel, I had to interrupt you again, is these were things that Mike actually talked about a while ago, about how the more customization, dyes, paints, whatever you can add to the game, because character customization is your actual character model is pretty stagnant. You look like every other Kulturian female outside of the armor you have on. It's all the same models, right? Everything across the board. So Blizzard has to find creative ways beyond just transmog to make you able to customize and build your character. And these little ways that everyone can make this stupid mechanical cat mount, but if you can actually trick it out in your own way, it's a little nod to those players, and there are many of them.
As it turns out, something like that will take a little bit of time to collect, in part because you'll need a lot of resources from different sources, but also because there are what we're calling visitors coming to the island.
Now, we didn't see any of the visitors because they come, like, there's like 3 different visitors and they'll come on different days, like with the WOD garrisons, if you remember that in the inn.
Yeah, the inn, yeah.
When that happened. And they all have different quest lines and that they'll send you on to do. So, and that's your soft time gating, basically, is you can't complete it all in one day because you need the other 2 visitors. So, like, the guy that was behind, basically, like, the senior designers behind, whose name I forget now, who was behind designing it all, was like, it's not time gated, but, I mean, you can't, like, it's literally physically not possible to complete it.
Exactly.
So there is that sort of essence about it. But I've got a thing with those collections, like the building the spider mount and the cat mount, and adding towards your trinket, which is probably the most gameplay impacting part of it, which we'll get to in just a second.
Yeah, it's the one other part that I forgot about because we talked about it so early in the Mechagon thing is the trinket. The trinket combinations therein. I wonder if that's sort of a gameplay element for not like the high-end Mythic Plus and high-end Mythic Raiders. That's for like everyone else, because I don't know if that trinket would be good enough. Because it looked like it was like 385 or 400 eye level, right? So it didn't look like it was something super high-end, but definitely very fun to play with outside of that. But then again, there was one that had like the extra lung duration, which made you breathe under water longer. So I wonder if any of the raid encounters would require a different punch carded trinket of sorts, because again, player agency, control, building your character, it's all well and good. I just wonder if that's going to ever be I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole that Mike and blacklisting him thing. He knew what he was doing.
That's not going to take all that long. It's like all the other achievements and stuff and rewards on the island, because didn't they say about the secrets?
Yeah, so this, according to Jeremy Fiesel, and I hope he doesn't mind that we're sharing this, but Mechagon has the most secrets per square inch of any place in the game.
Yeah.
What?
Right, so take that as you will, secret finding community.
Yeah, totally. And like, you know, there are some pretty like obvious ones that are quite organically introduced as you're running around as well. So like, we were running around, we found a cave.
So Mechagon is basically Muffinus the island. Got it.
With like this big troll in there who was green, like had a green nameplate, and he had like all paint pots around him. And he was like, "Ugh, I hate blue. Blue is the worst color."
Yeah.
And we were like, "Okay." And then we were running around and we found like the paint shop where the Meccano cat was getting sprayed, and there were different color paint sprays spraying off. And I got covered in some blue paint. And I just turned blue, and I was like, "Awesome! Now that troll's gonna hate me. I can go and fight him." He was a trog, not a troll.
Yeah.
And I ran back down to but it had been quite a while since then. We'd done like the dungeon in between.
Exactly.
And I ran back down to the cave where he was, but now he was all like, "Orange! I hate orange!" I was like, "Oh, come on!" And I ran back and got myself covered in orange paint and came back. And
so it's full of like kind of like mini puzzles. It's full of little things that you'll stumble upon and solve and have to think about a little bit.
And the resources that you collect, they're not just used for like building pets and mounts and things. They're used for like unlocking some of those things too. So there's like there was one event that we came across, which was a drill.
Giant freaking theme park. Yeah.
And when you clicked on it, it was like the Warfront hand-in.
Yeah.
You know, in a Warfront, it needed a certain amount of resources. And luckily, because I spent all my resources on it, and luckily Hazelnutty Games was there as well to give some of her resources, and you spent them all on something else. And the drill, like, spent about 30 seconds drilling through the mountain so everyone could come and be ready for the boss when it came out. And a new boss came out and we killed it, and it was like awesome. It was really cool. So there'll be stuff like that popping up as well.
But are there different hubs? Because this sounds like what they did with their faction, but how does that work with War Mode and Alliance and Horde in the same area? Do we have different factions of mechanomes that are for one or the other? They haven't talked about that at all.
You'll have missions to build like turrets, which pop up and kill enemies, which will make your day-to-day thing a lot easier.
Yeah.
So the more you play Mechagon, the easier the day-to-day grind will get. I guess.
In theory,
Yeah.
right? So like things that you construct on the island, like turrets, for example, will probably only last like 30 minutes or something.
Yeah.
But they all kind of like assist you in doing your little quests around there. And given that Mechagon is actually quite small and dense.
Now this is the most interesting thing about it for me.
Yeah.
Because sorry, Karen.
Yeah, and compact. That means there's going to be a lot of people in there at one time.
And not just that, but they all get funneled into the same starting place, and
Yeah.
like there's one central area, and where everyone's gonna be heading back to the whole time.
Yeah, and handing in your resources to your new buddy Pascal, who helps you build things.
So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what happens if I've got war mode enabled?
Okay.
And the answer is exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's apparently just gonna be horrible, but
Yeah.
also brilliant.
Yeah, we
and-
brought this up in the round table, and everyone was like, "So what happens with war mode?" And Ian was like,
What happens in war mode happens in war mode. Yeah, totally. They don't go.
exactly.
Now you can't.
But that means there's like one hub then.
The war mode is disabled. It's not disabled, but within the central hub, that's like a neutral area. So if you start, it's like with the Tortollan bit.
Yeah.
If you start fighting someone of the opposite faction in the hub,
All right,
then you'll get
yeah.
your ass kicked by all robots and stuff like
Exactly.
that. But outside that, like as in 99% of the entire island, it's a free-for-all. And this is the great thing about having such access to these developers. I was like, well, those turrets and stuff that you build, are they PvP enabled? Can you attack, like, do they attack the other faction as well? Because that would be really cool in war mode. It didn't just attack enemies, it attacked the opposing faction as well. And Ian was like, no, not right now. And then he made some calls. He made some calls, and I think that's going to happen now.
Cool.
T&E, mate, when you're running along...
But is that dependent on if they do that kind of stuff? It depends on, I guess, who builds them. Because that's Isle of Thunder. Isle of Thunder had defense turrets that were around your areas that you would have to do for the PvP quests. They had to go, like, if you're Alliance, you had to go to some of the island and destroy, like, the Blood Elf Crystal Tower crap. So, okay.
in war mode and you get hit by a turret or whatever that someone's built, and you're Alliance and you're dead now because the Horde built a turret that just killed you, you know who to thank. It's T&E.
Yep.
Winning hearts and minds in the development team since 2016. Awesome.
I'm sure that's
I'd
what
like to
they-
think we've had a major
yeah.
impact on how this game plays now, which is small. But like I say, the main reason that a lot of people are going to be completing this, obviously, like I say, there's a meta achievement, which is, you managed to find the meta achievement in the achievement tab,
Yes,
didn't you?
and it's massive, and it was really not descriptive because there are a lot of like titles of the achievements that are like TK 412, which I don't know if it's just like because it was
like filler or like
filler,
placeholder or whatever.
or if it's literally because you're building robots and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
But once you complete all of them, that's when you get your Meccano bike.
Yeah.
So that's going to be like a big objective for a lot of people.
Yes.
But from a gameplay point of view, the reason the raiders and stuff will be going in there is because of the trinket that you get, the punch card trinket, which you'll have seen in the presentation. It's got slots, which are like gem slots, but they are punch card slots, and you get schematics and recipes and the resources you need to make these punch cards.
Or you can actually pick up the cards in some places.
Oh yeah,
like,
totally.
I picked one up.
I mean, you get
on
one
my
free
quest,
just to start
right?
with. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I think that obviously the better ones and the more interesting ones
You have to
will be
kind of
ones that
craft.
you have to kind of craft yourself using the stuff that's on the
And there are
island.
3 different
Sure.
kinds. I think there are 3 different colors of punch cards, so you can only equip like one color per punch card.
Yeah, one of each
if
color.
that makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And they
Yeah, seeing colored slots, seeing colored gem slots again on gear was weird. When was colored gem slots? Was that the last thing we saw as Cataclysm, wasn't it? Colored gem slots.
They go from, giving you a versatility and haste buff or whatever to actual kind of like more useful effects and more interesting effects as well. So that will probably be the reason like your serious players are going to Mechagon to grind.
Do we have colored ones in
and the
MoP,
great
really?
thing is, I didn't get through all of the quests. Like I said, I played for an hour. I was specifically trying to get through all the quests to see how many there were. And
Yeah, do I have let me see if there's a picture that I can pull over of this just for context. In Gem Slots 2.0. Is there a picture of the punch card trinket? Yay. So we have this. Whoops. Punch card trinket. So yeah, 1 red, yellow, and blue. So like the yellow was just stats, the secondary stats, mastery, haste, crit, mastery, crit, versatility, whatever. The red, chance on damage or healing to gain 10% haste, randomly deals extra damage to the target, and amps harmonic dematerializers damage on similar targets. So deals some damage, then it deals more damage if you keep hitting the same target. Used to channel a cyclotronic blast. Okay. So like on use effects. Yeah, on use effects. And then the blue looks like a utility one. Gain a remote circuit bypasser, empowering your abilities to manipulate Mechagon foes, track nearby mechanical creatures, increase your lung capacity. So, no, sorry, I covered up the wrong person. Sorry, there we go. Pardon me, I didn't cover up Evitel. Okay. I wonder if that'll be strong enough to be used, again, higher end content. I don't know.
And I got through the initial lot, and it's weird because it's not like you look at the map and there are world quests there to do. You have to go out and you have to kind of find the exclamation marks and stuff like that and kind of follow them through. So like I didn't run out of quests. I thought I had. And I was like, and then I just ran out into the island again and there's loads. And I was like, yeah, okay. So
8 bosses is fine, Kyle.
Even if you were to, on any given day, run out of stuff to do, there's always like, if you want to, you can just kill some mobs and like fight some people and you will get resources, which is like what you need.
It's Timeless Isle currency,
there's potential friendless grinding there, which, like on the Timeless Isle, I think is really cool. Like that's an option we haven't had in BFA.
Yeah, and another thing that was mentioned was the return of like actual star rares, but like actual rare star rares, because you know what I mean. You see a star rare and you're like, oh, I've seen it, but actually ones that don't pop up very often. And the idea is that they will pop up on the island periodically. And that, that's even more incentive to grind and look for them.
And if there is a Hulan 2.0, get your add-ons ready.
Because it's it's not a huge island. I mean, like I say, it's bigger than Timeless Isle, but it's not as 3D. No. Like I mean, it is in that it's got like nooks and crannies and like underground bits and tunnels and stuff, but it's just not as vertical. You know, there's not like huge bridges going overhead and stuff like that. It's generally on the one level, which is cool because it kind of does create this rather intimate atmosphere. I mean, there was like 10 of us playing it, and I was always seeing everyone else running around. You know what I mean? It was like, so in war mode, it's going to be hectic in a really good way. And if you haven't got it on war mode, there's going to be lots of friends to help you out and stuff.
Exactly.
And I think it looks awesome. And obviously, it looks awesome as well. And it's really cool. And then 2 weeks, or 3 weeks maybe, after Mechagon goes live, the dungeon Mechagon, the mythic only for now, 8 boss mini dungeon.
Yep.
Will go live. Operation
Mechagon.
Thank you.
Yeah, so flat mythic only, just like Karazhan was, 8 bosses. Still no confirmation on the split 2 Mythic Plus dungeons?
Absolutely. And we also had the chance to play that as well. We have world first on that dungeon.
Well, on the last 4 bosses.
I just want to say, well, yeah, but I think, like, you don't get world first for completing the first 4 bosses, do you?
No.
We are world first King Mechagon kill. That's an actual fact. No one can deny that.
On normal difficulty.
We are the first non-Blizzard employees.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not.
What did you think of the dungeon?
And I will remind people of that forever until I die.
Yes.
It's mythic only, but like, what was the scaling in the test server? What they do? Did they have like the eye level tabard thing on? That's why I'm giving them guff for that. Obviously, it's mythic flat.
I was the first healer to complete that dungeon. What did you think of the dungeon? Because it was the last 4 bosses, and what were your and so
could be mythic plus later.
It's like it's a bit like Tal'Gador. You're outside at first, and then you
wait. How did Tally pronounce Tal'Gador?
Work your way into like the heart of and that's the pictures that you've seen with the cool like inside townscape and stuff like that. And we played that bit, the second bit.
Yeah.
And what did you think?
It's super fun. There are lots of little things that pop up that you have to figure out. Obviously, you know, going into like something like this fresh without any kind of guide and without anyone actually reading the guide.
And with a terrible tank.
And with oh my god,
sloop bag. So bad.
And our
he's
team
the
was
worst tank. Honestly, he's so bad. If it wasn't for my amazing healing, keeping him up. I was like, "You're allowed to self-mitigate, Sloot." And he was like, "What's that? I don't even know what that is."
There were some, there were
Terrible
some
tank,
really fun
awful.
moments where we were like clearly up against a wall, and no one, no health was going down on the boss, and we were like, okay, we've got to figure something out right now. And eventually we did, with the help of some of the devs.
Yeah, and the difficulty on the dungeon was at Mythic 0 level, but was much easier than that because our kind of pre-made characters were overgeared for it. So, like, we destroyed
They were
them.
overgeared for it.
We had a couple of wipes and stuff through not knowing mechanics.
There are a couple of gauntlets, right?
Well,
that
it's a
you'll
gauntlet.
come
So
across?
the last 4 bosses, there's a bit more trash in the first 4 bosses, because eventually they are going to get separated into 2, so you can queue for them as well.
There it is.
That'd be an 8.3. But the second half of that dungeon is a gauntlet.
Wait. Is that a real tell right there?
There are a couple of gauntlets, right?
Well,
that
it's a
you'll come
gauntlet. So
across?
the last 4 bosses, there's a bit more trash in the first 4 bosses, because eventually they are going to get separated into 2, so you can queue for them as well.
Yes.
That'd be an 8.3. But the second half of that dungeon is
I can't tell if that's like a real info drop or not. Are they going to really wait for Mechagon to be separated into 2 and queuable? They'll probably have a heroic version and Mythic Plusable until 8.3? Huh. That sounds super weird to me. If that's the case. Or if that was just a jokey face.
the gauntlet. So there's essentially no trash at all.
Yeah.
And it's 4 boss fights. The first one's in this big arena with like blades spinning around everywhere. Like it's really hectic, really spectacular. And then you get sucked down into the actual city itself.
Yeah.
Which looks incredible.
It looks so cool.
Like it's the most beautiful thing, and like
Yeah.
it's so awesome. And there's like loads of conveyor belts that you have to run around and fall off. And then there's like a stealth bit where there are like these, and you have to. Like,
Was Kara a
stand on
whole
vents that
patch
you can
later,
hit,
her
and
Mythic
that's
Plus
easiest to work
version?
out.
Yeah, it was a bit like a Suramar flashback. Where
Was
you
it
have these,
really
like,
a
extra
whole
buttons
content
running
patch
around,
later?
and you have to,
There were like these vents which work like Assassin's Creed baskets, which you have to like kind of be in. And
It really
walk past and
was?
stuff. And like and you know there's gonna be one person in each dungeon. who never knows
Interesting.
how to do
Exactly,
that, and it's
exactly.
gonna be horrible.
But it was really fun experiencing it for the first time and being like,
Sizable amount of time is fine, but one thing that I'm getting at is that there were other dungeons that were patched in Legion, and we're getting none right now. So it feels weird that the next dungeon we get is Mythic Flat only, no Mythic Plus, and then there's no other dungeons tied to this at all yet. We didn't get any dungeons in 8.1.
I understand.
And generally, it's really claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And like the boss areas, apart from the first boss with the blades, are really small. Even
it
King
is
Mechagon.
really small.
Like, and there's loads of ground effects going on,
Yeah.
and loads of like, it's like a bullet hell game, to be honest. Like, there's loads of stuff to dodge,
Yeah.
and like things going around, as you'd expect from like a robot-y type dungeon.
Exactly, and there's very little time where you're just like running somewhere
Yeah.
without doing anything. Like it's
Totally.
really dense and
But that
compact.
one's all about the boss fights. And we were talking to Ian about that, and we were like, well, surely that's going to be the key that everyone wants, like the Mythic Plus key that everyone wants. If it's
Right.
like there's no trash, it's just boss fights. And he was like, yeah, to be honest, that's kind of on purpose because we learned with the new dungeons that we introduced throughout Legion. Like Cathedral and stuff like that, is because people don't know them as well when they're released. They're automatically harder because people don't know all the tricks
Yeah,
like
of
they do.
course.
So they're always going to choose the dungeons they know.
Well, or Cathedral was just wicked tuned for a Mythic Flat and then scaled way out of control of Mythic Plus. It was awesome as a Mythic Flat dungeon, though. Cathedral was really fun. And then the heckin' other one on Argus, same thing. Really well Mythic Flat dungeon at the time when it first came out because it was the current sort of level scale hook. But then it was so bad for Mythic Plus. So,
Even if the new dungeons are easier. So when you make the new dungeons even harder, that just takes them out of the rotation. No one ever does them. So it's kind of purposely a bit more simple and straightforward, but no less the fun for it. And I know obviously it's always fun the first time you do a new dungeon, and like first time you see new bosses, and you're having, and especially if you're doing it LAN. We were having a LAN party doing it, like we were all there shouting at each other, which is like extra great. Sloot, why are you so rubbish at tanking? Then obviously that's going to be fun, but like trying to look at it as objectively as possible, like the boss fights in a dungeon where there was only boss fights pretty much are interesting enough to be worth it.
I'm not going to comment on that.
There's loads of effects
Zom.
and mechanics and stuff going on, which I thought was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. And not so much looking forward to the first half of the dungeon where there's more trash spam.
No.
Because the second half was so good.
Yeah, it was really great.
So yeah, I'd be interested to see that. But that will of course go live, like what is essentially a little. And Ian referred to this like this as well. I know people have made fun of me for saying this in comments before, but I want you to know that Ian said the exact same words. It's like a 5-man raid.
Yeah.
As it's supposed to be, just like Karazhan was.
Yeah, how Karazhan
got
was.
a separate lockout, so you can go away and get hard. Like you can do.
This was a lot of fun. So if you were here in my little corner of the internet when Kara was out, there's actually a very old video on my YouTube channel where at the time it's actually was noticeable to the Karazhan, the whole run would take a lot of time. And figuring out Nightbane was a huge community thing, but I started doing Nightbane runs and getting people the Nightbane mount from our little circle, right? We had like 4 of the same people. We would always run some Nightbane runs. We would do like maybe 1 or 2 a reset because I had 2 characters, right? And I wonder if we can do something similar, if there's anything in Mechagon where we could do something like that, if they do something and they have that secrety thing. I mean, again, Muffinus said that there's a lot of secrets in Mechagon. So I wonder, but I also would, hopefully we can just run the dungeon with the stream community, because that experience of doing a 5-man together, whole lot of fun. We did that with Cathedral. We did that with, I can't remember the damn other one. What was the other new dungeon they added on Argus? I can't remember the damn name because I just like blocked it out of my memory because it was so bleh. So yeah.
Do half of it with your group and like come back to it.
Seat of the Triumvirate. There it is.
Things like that. And the loot in there will be the same sort of level that Karazhan loot was relative to the other loot that's going on. So if you're like a mythic raider, there's probably not much there that's going to excite you, although there are like schematics for the punch cards for the trinket in there and stuff.
Yes.
So there is reason.
But if that is useful outside of it, because it looks like the trinket is baseline at a lower eye level, but the effects on it might be really important for certain things later on. And 300 of a secondary stat is pretty strong.
To go there. And there is certain Azerite traits that you can only get in that dungeon as well, which have like synchronization effects with the trinket as well. So the trinket has certain things and certain punch cards. Which
Whoa. Oh, I mean, okay. I mean, I didn't even bring up Titan Residuum yet, or the Azerite gear vendor, if that's going to be improved upon or added more to, or the currency reset or whatever. But Taliesin just said that the punch card has Azerite synergistic potential with Azerite armor traits from the dungeon. Almost like making set bonuses of having both, which is fine. But again, I always get, you really can't get Azerite armor and be farmable. You have to just run Mythic Flats, but then that eye level is going to be way below what raid loot's going to be, because what's the next bump when 8.2 comes out? Everything goes up by 15 or whatever, right? You're not going to wear, I'm going to have 420 Azerite armor on from Mythic right now, and I'm not going to want to wear a piece of 400, right? So those are, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Those are always weird with that like reverse forward character progression. I don't know how it's going to work. We'll see.
Which work with certain Azerite traits that you get from Mechagon.
Which is quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, this all sounds really confusing to me, but it's like, so...
It gives you options, right?
Yeah, totally. And so there's always a reason to be going in there. And bearing in mind, it will be launching, if Ian is to be believed, and this is what he definitely said, because I was like, did he actually say that? Is that, because that sounds really unlikely. If we're to be believed, the Dungeon Mechagon will be going live on the same day as the new Azshara raid.
So we hear.
And that's what we played.
They might desync that by a week,
and then sorry, I've just got my notes written on my phone here.
Same.
It sounds like they'd be doing something where it'd be patch a week later, dungeon a week later, raid. That makes the most sense, because if they drop the raid a week after the patch comes out, people are going to have to grind and farm for essences real hard. That would be a little bit too. I don't think any raid has launched that quickly after a major patch, so I imagine it'll be like a 1 week, and then Mythic, of course, like essentially a month after the patch comes out. We'll see.
It's not my script from Blizzard, as you might have guessed. So we talked about the essences and the extra stuff we learned about the essences and our experience kind of playing with them and swapping them out. We talked about the island Mechagon and the PvP fun times that we had there. We talked about the dungeon playthrough. And then we had what amounted to well over 3 hours of roundtable discussion.
Yeah.
We had one like 2-hour talk after we'd had a play on the island of Mechagon, and then we had an hour and a half with encounter designers after that. So we spoke to mostly quest designers and like Jeremy Fiesel and stuff in the first roundtable, and we spoke to the raid encounter designers team, the 3 of them, and you'll have seen them on videos and like Q&As and stuff like that. Who wanted our feedback on the dungeons, and obviously we all used it as an opportunity to talk to them about raid philosophy,
which was really cool, and they were really open and forthcoming about it.
And they want.
You're lost. I haven't seen this whole video. Oh, they're T&E are recanting all their stuff from the summit essentially. So, yeah.
Wanted our opinions on stuff. There were bits where it felt a bit like a Q&A.
Yeah.
But there were also bits where it was literally just feedback and saying, no, this needs to be like this.
I like how they brought, though, for this junket, that they brought definitely some of the, I mean, if you want to label T&E as filthy casuals, totally fine, right? They'll probably take it, accept it, right? And then they paired it up with people like Sloot and Just Wait, right? So it was very targeted at trying to osmose different community sponges, if you want to call all these, influencers, content producers sponges, right? Same thing I did when I went to the Warlords one and the Legion one, is we'll have a different soak up from the community that is interesting, and then that distills to Blizzard in this regard.
This needs to change. This needs to be different. A question that I know a lot of you will have. One of my major concerns was talking about the scheduling and when things will be released, which I think was answered pretty well. Nashatar is not going to unlock different bits like, say, Argus did. Essentially, the whole island is going to be open when you get there. So like all those different parts.
You call it an island, right?
Oh yeah, well like the area, and like Zinashari and like the coral reefs and stuff like that.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So that'll all be open when you get there for all like the events and rares and like PvP towers that are going to be there.
Yes.
Like Legion style PvP towers, but with a bit of a twist on it and things like that, which we talked to.
Legion PvP towers? I think back to Burning Crusade PvP towers. The stuff that was around the Auchindoun or Hala.
Link about. But the story, there'll be different story appearing there over the course of 2 weeks, and beyond with the war campaign as well. So that's cool as well. I wanted to ask about, because I knew you guys wouldn't forgive me if I didn't, I wanted to ask about Pathfinder and flying, and there will be rep requirements and like achievement requirements from both Mechagon and Nashatar.
Makes
sense.
sense.
It's probably gonna they're using the 7.2 model, so it's going to take about as long as it did. And bear in mind, there were people in 7.2 that unlocked flying within a week of 7.2 going live. If you really want to blitz it, I didn't. I played every day, but I didn't do any like server hopping or anything like that to get treasures and stuff. And I unlocked it after 2 weeks. Yeah. So that's what you're looking at when 8.2 goes live.
You don't remember? Yeah, the PvP towers in Legion were a little bit wonky. And then unlocking flying, though, if you have the first Pathfinder unlocked, and if it's, complete the new war campaign, get your rep with the whatever the Azshara rep is to Revered or Exalted, and then do the same thing in Mechagon. One might be way faster than the other, but if you play, your same sort of cadence and you play every day and you absorb the content, like a lot of hardcore players will do, 7 to 10 days, you're flying, right? It won't be a big deal. It's not going to be super bleh, like it was way in the past. Unlocking flying, I guess, like the Legion like Tanan jungle experience was.
And obviously, as I'm sure you've heard, flying is enabled on Najatar and Mechagon.
Both new
Yes.
zones, yeah.
As well as Kultiris and Zandalar.
Yeah,
Which is
and,
awesome.
Yeah, when you get Pathfinder Part 2, you get a mechanical parrot mount.
Which is awesome.
Which is pretty sick.
Which I think is a good opportunity to talk about the new mount equipment slots.
Yes.
Which is another thing people will have heard about in the presentation, which again, we have more information on.
Yep.
Because we could just ask people, because we were there. And it was really awesome. We don't have to guess about this shit. Like, I feel sorry for... I feel sorry for Belial. I guess all this stuff. And we just got the answers. He'll still get more views than us. He doesn't care. But we got...
Mike is Mike is Preach. Michael is Bailer. Bell is gonna probably already. How many videos does Bell have out already? I gotta go check. Hold on a second. Pause. Hold on. How many videos has Bell already made? Let's see. Wait, none so far? He has not uploaded a video in the past 5 hours. Son, I am disappointed. I am disappointed. 8 of them? Nope. I mean, he's sleeping right now? I don't believe that at all.
got the real answers.
So, mount equipment.
He doesn't give a shit.
This is a new feature, which is actually pretty cool. I got excited. When I first heard about it, I'm like, oh cool, is this like bags you put on your mount? Because, you know, mounts.
Oh, you wanted an extra bag space?
Yeah, like put bags on your mount.
No, I'm
anyway,
sorry.
These are equipment that you put onto your mount that gives it different abilities and skills. So, for example, there's one that makes sure that you don't get
Where do we
dazed
get
if you
these,
hit,
though?
Right? There's
Where are we
one,
getting
what are the other
these?
ones?
Well, the one that everyone wants.
Do we
is the
know
water
yet?
walking one.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I mean, this is why it exists, really, is to replace water striders as, like, the go-to mount.
Yeah,
When you-
But again, you're going to have flying within less than 2 weeks. So there's that. The other part of this is not everyone is going to get flying. Zombler, just make sure you put that right on top of Evitel's head. But so it's for other people. The one thing about that Kana brought up on Twitter just now is that if these mount equipment slots don't go away from one expansion to the next, does that mean that when we go to 9.0 and there's obviously the whole no flying thing, we're going to have water walking mounts, period? So are they going to redesign that, or are they going to go away or depreciate over time? I hope these things stay, right? They become permanent additions to the game based on the last Q&A. Ian was talking a lot about, this is a really unfortunate freeze frame of Taliesin here, but allowing things to stay in the game. So
I don't know about you guys, but I actually don't have the water strider. I
Neither
never
do I.
bothered
Shame.
getting
Ding,
the
ding.
water strider.
Shame.
I don't have
And
it either.
this is the best news for me, because this means that you will have an equipment slot where you can equip it, and now your mount can walk on water, regardless of what it is.
And these gear slots will be made, the things that you fill the gear slots with will be made by crafters. So,
Yes.
like the days
Okay.
one will be a blacksmithing item, apparently.
Probably.
Don't know what the walking, whatever.
yeah,
So
and then there's one that,
profession
reduces
items.
your fall speed, right? It's like an
And of course,
automatic
like,
parachute.
The one that most people, and you can swap them out as well. You
Yeah.
destroy it when you take it out.
Yeah.
So there's always a reason to buy new ones.
Okay.
So it's like a gem, really.
Mm-hmm.
You destroy it when you take it out, and you put a new one in. So and you can swap them out whenever you want. So you can be like riding along,
Yeah.
and go, oh, there's lots of water here. I'll put on my water
Yeah.
walking one.
It will be a bit expensive, though.
There's a lot of
right?
water
They won't
here.
be
Well, it
super
depends how many
cheap.
people make it and what
I
the.
don't have 5 million gold.
I'm all for them being expensive. I'm all
Yeah.
for anything that makes crafting better,
Yeah.
and I'm all for anything that makes crafting and having your professions up and
Yeah.
and practicing your professions.
So you're bringing up something totally very different in chat right now, Payo, as it scrolls by. I wanted to make sure you're talking about the different essences, but you can be like, lol, there are crazy things floating around right now. We'll give Prot Warriors 100% avatar uptime, blah, blah, blah. But again, A, no PTR yet. B, these are going to things that are going to be coming back in feedback. And C, things like that probably shouldn't go live because 100% avatar uptime in this one example would be a bit degenerate. So I wouldn't go that far. So it's,
and making stuff. I'm up for anything that makes that more important.
Yeah.
So
fair.
like
That's all right.
I'm totally down with that. Any new thing that crafters have that they can sell, especially something as important as that, I'm down with that 100%.
Yeah.
So so that's what you already know. Apart from the thing about it being like gems and they get destroyed when you take them out, actually, you already know that from the presentation. But we do have more information for you as well. You're thinking to yourself, well, that's a bit rubbish because I have the water walking mount. Why do I need to buy water walking things? Like, I've just lost a lot of prestige. I worked really hard for that water walking mount, and you do get an advantage already if you have a water strider.
Yeah.
Then when this system goes live in 8.2, in the mail you will receive a free water walking
which is
equipment.
It's called inflatable mount shoes.
Thank you.
Which I love because in my head there's like a visual effect where your mount has little inflatable shoes. That doesn't exist, but that's just in my head.
So you'll receive that free. Oh, and by the way, when you have it equipped in, like, your equipment slot is different, is universal.
Yeah.
So if you've got the water walking shoes in your equipment slot for mounts, any mount you choose will have that. Yeah, it doesn't like it's not. You don't have to go. I put this on my hippo,
This one
and I
mount
put this on
is
my
not
thing.
my-
Yeah, it's part of like the UI element itself. You equip it to your mounts, period, right?
The water walking
Yeah,
mount.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like so you and if you've got a water strider,
My shirt is open because I'm trying to compete with Taliesin because he's 2 buttons down, right? There's a button right here and a button right here. So I had to go 3 buttons down to compete.
you get free water walking equipment.
Yeah.
So I had to go
And
3.
When you go
1,
to the Timeless
2,
Isle and
3.
talk to the rep vendors there, which is where you bought it from in the first place, or wherever it is you bought it. I bought all my rep tokens from the Timeless Isle.
Yeah.
Anyway, when you go to the rep vendor that you bought it from in the first place, you get greatly reduced in price.
Yeah.
Water shoes, like
Yeah.
if you already have the water strider, if you have your reputation up there already. So like if you worked really hard to get your water strider, you do get an advantage when it comes to the water walking shoes. Which
I
is
did
really
not work hard to get my water strider, so I deserve.
But again, Peo, I don't know what this is early feedback, but it's amusing to see the discrepancies in what they're offering to some specs. Again, this is the PTR is going to be up for 6 to 9, 12 weeks or whatever, right? 2 to 3 months. This is feedback they'll be given, right? I'm not worried about it, right? It's when stuff goes live like this, then it'll be bad.
Nothing.
Or like
but,
that, rather.
Yeah.
I'm still really grateful this is happening.
These slots at the moment will be enabled after level 100, which we took issue with in our roundtable because we were like, but that means you still have to use the water strider below level 100.
Yeah,
Oh, and
that's
this is the
yeah,
thing, right?
that's
The water
essential.
strider can't walk on water anymore without the hooves.
Yes, that's the thing. That's why you get mailed the inflatable
Yes.
shoes.
So
which I
any
love.
effects that like that amount have is any effects that one of the equipment slots can do, like water walking or slow fall or something like that, gets taken away. Okay, so your
That's a kind of a controversial change, but they are making it so that the equipment is the more powerful choice. But that's strange. But you've had a water walker strider for expansions after expansion.
Sky Golem can still harvest. That's an effect that isn't in an equipment slot.
Yeah.
So that stays. But it can't, like, your Sky Golem won't be affected by any of the other equipment slots. You
by the
can't
water
use.
shoes, for example, because they don't want
Probably,
to create,
yeah.
like, the ultimate
Yeah,
OP
actually,
mount,
yeah,
which
probably.
can harvest herbs, fly around.
A reason to remove
and
it.
has this
Yeah.
effect as well.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
so to
too
make that clear,
mandatory.
your Sky Golem will not be able to walk on water. Because it can already do herbs.
Yeah.
And so, like, Sky Golem will not be able to equip, like, any of these mount equipment slots. Your vendor mounts will. Because Ian was like, no one rides around on a vendor mount. Anyway. It's
Exactly.
like, that's not an OP mount if you make it walk on water.
Exactly.
It's fine. And if you have a class like a DK who has these effects anyway, well, that's great. Like, more power to you.
Yeah.
Like, they stack. So if you're a DK and you can walk on water anyway, with your mount, then you just never need the water shoes anyway, and you can just equip another one. And if you're a blood DK who doesn't get dazed, and you can walk on water, then hooray, you only need the slow fall one. You're obviously going to have that equipped the whole time. So like those things stack. Our problem was that means there is no water walking mount.
They tried to remove water walking on mounts once before, and there was a riot. But again, they've been trying to make that push and that decision, and to remove it, to re-baseline that for a while. So this seems like their reason to do it. Yeah.
Below level 100. And we were like, well, that's not really that's like
great, is it?
That's taking something away.
Yeah.
And no one wants anything taken away. This
So
should be an addition. And Ian again was like, you're right, we hadn't really thought.
Yeah. Again, this is PTR. This is all feedback, so
that looks like it's going to change. But at the moment, at least, the equipment slots come into play after level 100. That's going to change because of our cool round table. That's what it's for. That's what it's for. Okay, so I hope we've. I don't think we explained it very well, but I
imagine they probably should hopefully update it so that you could have an equipment slot when you get a mount. Because for the most part, for new characters, it won't matter. But for leveling alt, you should be able to send equipment to your alt. That seems like the easiest thing to me, because you don't get a mount until a certain level anyway. So we'll see.
I think we got through the mount equipment.
I think we have.
And obviously, there's potential for new mount equipment slots in the future. Like the dazed and the slow fall and the water walking are obvious. Clearly, at some point, there's going to be like some wings that allow any mount to fly. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the dream will have come true, and we will have our flying hippo.
Hippos will fly.
Yeah. Unofficial.
Hold on, I gotta back up.
For new mount equipment slots in the future, like the dazed and the slow fall and the water walking are obvious. Clearly, at some point, there's going to be like some wings that allow any mount to fly. And then, ladies and gentlemen,
oh, I see. Okay,
the dream will have come true.
So that does make it sound like the mount equipment system will go forward, right? It'll be a system that comes in now and essentially will just stay in the game baseline. So it makes me wonder what type of materials you will use to craft these items, because then I guess it keeps certain materials valuable for longer, but it's also weird going back to making 2 expansions old lockpicks for Mythic Plus right now, which I do, right? Because you can make the Warlords lockpicks for BFA Mythic Plus dungeons, like for Told to Gore. They work. I guess it's fine. I don't know, RPG.
And we will have our flying hippo.
Hippos will fly. Yeah.
Unofficial.
Unofficial.
Like,
I mean, in this dream.
But hopefully,
Hippos will
fly. Then we talked a lot about like raid philosophy and difficulty, and that's when it got a bit like a Q&A with Ian and the rest of the encounter team kind of giving their opinion. Like they're like, because we were talking about raid difficulty and like, are they okay with every boss bar the last boss in a new raid getting absolutely flattened, and
then the difficulty just going up.
Yeah,
like this,
exactly.
So,
And they were like, not really, but they are less concerned with, say, method flattening every boss, except the last boss, than most other players.
Yeah.
So like they basically what they said was they don't design the boss difficulty with the world first race in mind. They build it with the vast majority of mythic teams in mind, which is
done that
fair
for a
enough,
while.
And they said like ideally
The thing about bosses, it's not the numbers scaling specifically or the tuning therein. It's just when things just don't work, and then they change it to obviously make the boss fight work. But it's when it mostly came to a head with Stormwall Blockade and what Limit did and what the Limit found out on Stormwall Blockade, and then everyone else sort of gets penalized for their live beta testing and figuring out that something doesn't work or doesn't actually happen, because then everyone else's progression on that boss, which is the intended progression, also may be harder than what the first couple of kills are. And that's the weird teeter-totter in Mythic raids in endgame that always feels kind of stupid. And there's no way to get around it. It's going to happen sometimes, I guess. But I mean, that's also just, that comes down to QA internally. Right?
the last boss goes down about halfway through the first reset.
Yeah.
Like, so you have a reset and it goes down a little bit after that.
Yeah.
Which and like they were talking about how they color code bosses. Like there's green, and then there's like orange, there's yellow, and then there's like orange and red. And they turned out, just because some things went wrong in the build just before it went live, there were no orange bosses basically in Battle for Azshara lore. It went straight from yellow to red on Jaina. So I mean, like, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Because Stormwall didn't work properly. Interesting that they actually color code bosses.
But very specific, so we won't get into it now. Because I know that what you all want to hear about really is the underwater boss.
Oh God!
The underwater boss that you will have seen in the presentation, and you have gone,
This little dangling.
F off, Fiesel! Underwater, get out! And I think I asked the question, tell us about the underwater boss and why it will be the worst boss ever made.
So there will be an underwater
Oh, and how
boss.
they laughed. Oh, they chuckled. They definitely didn't go.
No. It's happening. Is it like the second boss?
Yeah, it's, I looked in the dungeon journal, and I think
third,
it's the
I
second
think?
boss,
Second or
I expected
third.
it was going to be the first,
Yeah.
to be honest. But I think, like, if the dungeon journal is to be believed, it's the second boss.
Yeah. In
You'll see this when it goes
Azshara's
live.
Eternal Palace.
Yeah, exactly. And so the way, like, you want to know, because we just basically got the whole
we're
fight
like-
out
we're
of the
like,
design. So
tell
you
me.
need to just tell us exactly how this works, okay, so we can make an opinion on it. So basically what will happen is, the underwater bit is pretty much a non-thing. It's like, it's underwater, so it's all 3D, but there's no mechanics that require you to know where any other party members are.
Right, so things are
Okay.
happening, in 3D to some degree.
Yeah.
But there will be platforms, obviously, because you have ground effects, and those are really important for.
Well, so this is the thing. So the boss, when you're fighting it, doesn't move. So you don't have to keep track of a boss in 3D space,
Right.
okay? And like for the majority of the time, you're not really moving either. There are 3 platforms which, throughout the 3 stages of the fight, the boss will move to, and like stick his head out of a different hole.
It's a big moray eel,
And that's when
essentially.
you swim. You literally swim from platform to platform
To
in
move
3D.
between
But
them,
when you
yeah.
get to the platform, you're all gonna. I mean, you could stay in 3D when you're at the platform if you want. But obviously you're going to want to all kind of gather on the platform so you can get in like the Druid healing circle and healing rain. And
Sure.
if you're like a melee DPS, you can use your ground effects and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to want to do that. And that's where the boss is anyway. He's like at floor level on this platform. And then you fight him for a bit and there'll be some mechanics and then he'll disappear and you have to swim to the next platform. And there'll be like a gauntlet. So there'll be like in Shrine of Storms where you have to swim through like jellyfish and stuff like that. Like the old Turtles game, which still gives me nightmares. And then you get to another platform and there's different mechanics. But again, you'll probably want to be on the platform, like on your feet, etc. So like it's not going to be, it's a gimmick. And it sounds, when you put it like that, it sounds bearable and pretty cool. And I don't think people are going to hate it as much. Obviously, you're going to get people who are always going to hate it just out of principle.
Of course.
Of
But
course.
it sounds like they've thought about everything that people possibly could hate about an underwater boss, and have worked pretty hard to kind of neutralize.
Worked
that.
beyond it, yeah.
Oh, and the important question is,
So it's
well,
mostly
isn't
a
it like-
novelty. And if it's a second or third boss, arguably kind of throwaway, right?
I hate swimming.
But it'll be fun.
And
It'll be
Ian actually
silly.
said something which I'd never really thought about
That's
before. It's
fine.
like, fun fact, like swim speed underwater is exactly the same speed as run speed.
Yeah.
Like
It
if
is the
you're
same.
running without a mount, it's the same speed.
It feels a lot slower.
Yeah.
But it's exactly the same.
And obviously,
Unless you
the
have
question
movement
I'm sure
speed,
you're
it's
thinking
just the
after watching
spatial
the
goo you're
presentation
in.
is druids.
Oh yeah.
Like, what about? Oh, and also breath is not an issue in this fight.
yeah,
Like, there's
of
no
course.
breath bar. It's
Right.
like you have something like a bubble.
Oh, so if there's no breath bar, then the lung capacity thing from the punch card is irrelevant then.
Of your head or something. And they were like, druids. Do druids get an advantage in this fight because they can use their like swim forms and things like that? And I think everyone expected Ian to go, no, there won't be any difference. You'll have a speed increase. And he was just like, yeah, druids can be really good in this fight.
Yep. I mean, like underwater mounts, not so much. Those aren't.
Because well, you can't mount out in combat,
Exactly,
obviously.
exactly.
But like, druids who can just turn into travel form and swim really fast.
Sure.
Result, they're
Great.
gonna have a really good time.
The fish artifact acquired.
Sucks not to be a druid. For this fight, at least.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's like the second boss of the raid. It's not going to be a particularly difficult encounter. Like, you're not going to be stacking druids in your raid for this fight.
No.
Like, it's a fun thing that they get a little, like, and they're going to get from platform to platform easier. Because you still can't like cast or fight or anything when you're in swim form. So like, yeah. But then I put forward the idea. I was like, well, look, this is the perfect opportunity to have the feature that I have fought for my entire WoW career implemented into the game finally. Because you know how you can mount druids when they're in travel form?
Yes.
Why can't you mount druids when they're in swim form? Why can't
Taliesin.
you grab onto, especially if they're in the whale form?
Yes.
Why can't you grab onto their fin?
Or just ride them.
There definitely needs to be a druid.
And there, ladies and gentlemen, is why these two are married.
Swim form, maybe a glyph or something, which makes them mountable underwater.
That would be amazing.
And this would be the perfect time to introduce it.
Yes.
So, like,
I'm with you.
that idea is out there now. And if that swim form happens to look exactly like a Tuskar, well, so be it. That's what I said.
Wow.
I laid my cards on the table.
Yeah, you really did.
And Ian didn't respond really, but he looked very impressed by that idea. He was speechless. He was like, why have I never thought of this? Why have we never hired Taliesin, apart from all that bribe money that we send them to say nice things about the game sometimes? Why? Get on it. He was like, I'm the boss. Make it happen.
I'm the boss. Yeah.
Mountable druid swim
Yeah,
form.
T and his Tuskars
Go.
too. Yeah.
I should have turned my phone on. So yeah.
Is that how you
that's
turn
the
your
water
phone
boss.
on?
That's the raid. Now, like I say, I did waste a lot of time reading the dungeon journal of the Azshara raid because I was very interested to see what little tidbits of lore might be in there.
Right.
And another thing that Ian said is that there's clearly a big cinematic at the end of this raid, of the Azshara raid.
A Terran Gregory and crew cinematic? No.
Okay. And Ian said that we will know who the final boss of BFA is after this raid. Like the events at the end of this raid will show us who the final boss of.
Tally's just racking up my commission fee right now, right? It's tree fitty every time he says my name.
Of this expansion is.
Very exciting.
I have read, as you will be able to on Monday, I have read the story description, or not Monday, whenever it goes live. I don't actually know when it goes live. I'm assuming actually like Wednesday or something. Probably after the reset, so maybe Wednesday. But I've read it when I should have been playing the game. When Sloot was trying to get this party together. And I was like, oh, hopefully another tank will come up soon. I'll join that one instead. But I was reading through it.
Damn.
And I think there's enough story in the description of the final Azshara fight in the Dungeon Journal. I think I now know who the final boss is.
Who is it?
I will reveal it in the weekly reset.
Oh, you scallywag.
You so-and-so. That's funny. Fair enough.
I will, because in the weekly reset we can script it.
I mean, I don't want like
a
super
much
spoilers.
Shorter, more efficient video than this.
Yeah, we don't want you to have to go through all of this.
We didn't want you to
find out
wait
who the
until
boss is.
we didn't want you to have to wait until the weekly reset for this information because like this is such good information. I feel like
juicy stuff.
we might be idiots at conveying it, but like the information itself is gold, and you deserve to know it from people that were there and that played it and that asked these questions.
Thank you,
So,
you beautiful bastard.
in the weekly reset, when we can structure this a bit better and we can have a proper spoiler warning up and stuff, that's when I will tell you what I read in the Dungeon Journal. And maybe even what I read on the wall of the sound office.
No!
That was written on a whiteboard. That I shouldn't have seen, probably, but I saw anyway.
Well.
But so one thing I will reveal.
Now, the question is, I don't know if you can talk about that stuff. Despite the fact that their embargo is lifted, they can talk about this. Usually when you go to these events, you can't talk about things that aren't explicitly given or shown to you. So I'm pretty sure, I mean, he's just riffing, but you can't actually do that, Tally. Don't say that.
And this is a spoiler. One of the bosses, one of the halfway through bosses.
Oh, do you guys want this spoiler? Because I know what he's going to say. I mean, I guess we're all here for this, and there's really no spoilers, and it's up on Wowhead anyway, so I guess it's probably okay. It's just story stuff. I mean, I guess you could pause the stream for like the next minute and a half or so if you don't want to know. That's why I wanted to like do this. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can do the same thing. You can skip ahead just a scotch. I know what he's going to talk about. So.
Of this raid. Spoiler warning up now.
Oh,
You don't want to know anything about this raid, but you'll see
spoiler
the
bot up.
It'll become public knowledge soon.
I like
One
it.
of those bosses is Lady Ashvane. And the model for Lady Ashvane, when I looked at it in the Dungeon Finder, is like a really big sea giant.
Oh.
And do you remember when
Placeholder.
Siege of Borealis was on the PTR?
I do.
The final boss of Siege of Borealis was supposed to be Lady Ashvane as well.
I remember.
And she was supposed to be a sea giant.
Oh.
So it's quite interesting. Like,
Very interesting.
So
I don't know if that's the.
she's
we'll
like
see.
in this big sea giant carapace form, and at some point in the fight, according to the Dungeon Journal, she comes out of the carapace. And what form she'll take then is a mystery. Now that's not official. That's what I've seen. So that's your spoiler. That's your first spoiler for what I read in the Dungeon Journal for Lady Ashvane.
Yeah,
Join
placeholder
us for the
probably.
weekly reset, which will be like hopefully this
Yep,
Saturday. But it won't
definitely
be
tune in
this
for that.
Sunday, where we will reveal to you, according to what we read in the Dungeon Journal, is the final boss of BFA.
Hoo boy. There are other things that are happening in the patch that Jeremy's presentation has gone through. You know, the Robodrome arena.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like
That's a really like tiny bit. That's why like, it's not like a crazy thing. Obviously, Tally talking about the end boss of the expansion.
the return of Azshara.
And we can't give you any information on that because
Exactly.
we
didn't,
we only know as much as you do about that.
Exactly.
Like we were more interested in like your kind of proper like fundamental stuff.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
what we were interested in like time gating and release, and we liked the answers we heard. Especially okay, here's the thing I'm thinking, right? And this is a question I've been pondering since we heard it last night. Because then we went out for dinner, and like loads of other devs came down. You had a really long conversation with John Haidt and Ian Hazakostas.
It was great.
And they were like genuinely asking your opinion on how to make the new player experience better.
Who wouldn't genuinely ask my opinion about these things?
Yeah, I would ask you all day long. And I was
Evitel.
having a really good time chatting to like some artists and stuff and Christy Golden. So I didn't get in on that conversation. But
Oh,
what
Christy
did they
was
ask
there.
you?
That's
That's
awesome.
I'm not revealing it here.
Okay, cool. But like, and this is the thing, right? People say like, you
Get
know,
got.
the best way to give feedback is to write angry comments. I'm not sure it is. I think the best way to give feedback is to talk to John Haidt and Ian Hazakostas.
Yeah, just talk to John.
To be honest, it was genuinely really special and an amazing privilege to be able to just like chat one-on-one with these super senior directors and developers on this game that is a game that we love, right? And just being able to like talk about it really openly, to ask questions, to be heard. It was really amazing. And it made me feel great. And it made me feel like they do really, really, really care, obviously, about making the game as good as possible.
No, it's terrible. They
given
don't.
the limitations.
YouTube
and the
comments,
many, many
MMO
complex
champion,
problems they have to
Evitel,
solve in
never.
order to make it that way.
Now that's not to say they always succeed.
No.
Sometimes they really don't.
No, they don't, but they're
there's
aware
no
of
doubt
that,
in my
right?
mind that they don't all care passionately.
Exactly.
Ian Hazakostas included.
Exactly.
Believe it or not, who knew? Who even knew?
Fair.
So that was really interesting. But there's one thing I've been thinking about that is bugging me, and maybe we'll talk about it more in the weekly reset. Because no one expected, well, maybe Mechagon, but no one expected the Azshara raid to be available that soon after 8.2.
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks, maybe 3.
Oh, yeah.
And that's quite soon, isn't it? Because I would have expected the Azshara raid,
Well,
like,
not really. We're not going to get the patch till probably June.
has been the pattern now since Legion, really. I'd have expected that raid to be 8.2.5, you know? And I'm thinking about what Ian is saying. Like, after that raid, in the cinematic at the end of that raid, we will know who the final boss of BFA is. Well, I think I know who it is now. If that all happens in 8.2, like 2 weeks after 8.2, what happens in 8.2.5? Because I was expecting, whatever that setup being, I expected to know the final boss after.
8.2.5 is the Worgen and Goblin visual updates.
after this raid. But I was expecting the next thing to happen then to be 8.3. And to go, whatever that is setting up, whatever big thing that is setting up, which we'll talk about in the weekly reset, I was expecting that to be 8.3. But what's going to happen at 8.2.5?
That's a good question.
Isn't it, though? We're going to leave you to ponder that. I'm sorry this video has been so long. I'm sorry it's been so rambly. I'm sorry there's been like a lack of good footage in it as well. But we wanted to answer your questions. Obviously, we weren't allowed to take any photos or like film while we were...
Well, you can't when you're in there.
But as people have played the PTR, people that have experienced these areas and these instances and this new Heart of Azeroth system and have actually played with it ourselves, and as people who have had the opportunity to quiz the developers that made it about it and find out even more, we felt we wanted to let you know after this, and the NDA is over now after that presentation. So we thought, we want to fill in the gaps and we want to be able to answer those questions that people are doubtlessly asking, because the same questions we had. So that's why we asked them. So hopefully this has been useful.
Yeah.
Hopefully this has been enlightening. Hopefully it's answered some of the questions that you had after that presentation.
Some of them, for sure. I think I'll end that there. They're gonna outro and stuff like that, but this has been an interesting experience. I mean, going back through and sitting through both the 8.2 dev stream preview for Rise of Azshara with Jeremy Fiesel, Muffinous. That's the other part of this two-part Bay reacts to and talks about and pauses the video, well, at least in this one. But there's more information coming out. There is a whole lot of stuff that Sloot talked about for the Heart of Azeroth that I want to go through real quick just to sort of dovetail this onto everything else here. So Sloot was talking about the Heart of Azeroth because he was also there. The flow at the start of the patch will be simple. Patch hits, new quest line with Magni. Completing it opens the new system for the necklace. AP not gone. AP still here, now used to unlock new powers. But I still wonder if they're going to reset the AP system so you can't just save emissary boxes, because that would be really degenerate. All concerns about AP should be smaller because the breakpoint for the system should be either very easy or impossible. Yeah, method shouldn't be able to unlock 65 before the raid. That sounds like a challenge. Yeah, that sounds like a challenge. yeah. Why don't you tell them that? Well, obviously, if we get the Heart of Azeroth neck and we're at 50, and to go from 50 to 65, it's literally unreachable numbers, then yeah, that's fine. So they don't want us to have 65 before the raid starts. So they don't want us to have any of the new active when the raid starts, which seems kind of strange. Minor slots in the constellation don't use essence. They just give just giving extra stamina. The little slots, the stat bonus is one. Essence slots, the big circles in the constellation are there's 55. So 55 will be the first one, then 60, then 65. Minor unlockables between. So okay, you'll get your first usable is 55. It's your first big one. And then the 265 and 60, those are the minors. Okay. There are both role-specific and generic essences. The major powers from the essences is super high, comparable to the main artifact abilities from Legion. While all essences have major powers, you will only gain them from the essences you slot into the Golden Circle, which is the first unlock. There are 3 essence slots. Unlocking them will provide with 3 minor and 1 major. While this sounds lame, there are lots of possibilities. Plus, it is easily expandable in future patches. So adding more minors and majors. Obtaining essences won't be RNG based. They will be deterministic. Essences have 3 power ranks. Plus the purely cosmetic one, the 4th rank. Essences come from all sources, PvP raids, reputations, Mythic Plus, etc. Or etc. if you're like me. For instance, the reputation essences have their rank 1 unlocked from Honored, 2 from Revered, and 3 from Exalted. Ranks are not only more damage, but also add new effects as well between the rank 1, 2, and 3. Rank 1 is just the use, rank 2 is the use and the minor, and rank 3, I believe, was a little bit more to both. Not just damage, but it was a little bit extra on, you can look at the ones on Wowhead. Legendary essences can have some RNG tied to their unlock process. The rep one is tied to their Paragon chest. Now, this doesn't mean all of them will have RNG. Sloot mentioned that the Mythic Plus essence will likely require you to complete all 15s in time. Sure. Remember, though, 15s will be more difficult in 8.2 because the scaling will change. So a 15 will be like kind of like an 18 now, but then once you get geared up, it'll be the same. That roll of how the stuff works out. Rank 1 and 2 easy to unlock. Most players should have them before the raid opens. Rank 3 will be likely unlocked during progression, around the time you kill heroic Azshara. So heroic unlocks, not mythic unlocks. It sounds like. Tooltips from essences tell you where to get the next rank, similar to how profession recipes work. Legendary ranks currently don't tell you where they come from, but they are considering adding them, as it will be all over the internet quickly after they are found anyway. Swapping essences works like talents, rested zone, or under the effect of a codex, no gold cost. So you actually don't have to go to the Heart Forge to do this. You can just do it in a city. Okay. That's nice. The 8.0 Azerite will still exist. New pieces will have everything unlocked if you're up to date with your Azerite, with only possible unlock being eye level during progression. There is no cap on the there is still no cap on 8.0 Azerite respec costs. Essences aren't included. Yeah, essences are free, but it looks like the Azerite respec system is staying. The Azerite armor respec cost is staying. Many essences passives seem really OP, and you'd imagine they have an internal cooldown, but no, they are actually really OP. And currently there are no PvP reductions planned for them, but the team will keep an eye on it. So based on my earlier question, 8.0 base respec of Azerite gear still in. Unfortunately, that sucks. But the essence system has no respec requirement. Okay. Yeah, for example, the epic one adds a second charge to an ability. Right. Right, exactly. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like the Legion artifacts and legendaries rolled together. I think it's more like a Legion artifact plus NLC, but yeah. Adding incentive to actually do a 15, count me the F in. The 4th rank is customization. Yeah. Why what, Jasper? Why what? And can you ask me something? Of course. I got a couple more minutes before I head out. Or before I end this section. If Blizzard says something is OP, by definition, it is not OP. We'll find out, I guess. We'll find out, I suppose. Yeah, one of them apparently is 100% uptime on Avatar for Prot. That's kind of OP. If that's true. Why was in reference to Azerite respec cost staying in? There's no good reason for them. That's just being stubborn at this point. Meh. The system is still in the game right now. There's not changing it. Just the new system of swapping around. Because I imagine, so the essence system costs nothing except for a tome or a respec area, like an arrested zone. That one you might actually swap way more often than the actual Azerite armor piece talents. The Azerite gear perks, right? So that's probably why. Maybe. Combined with the one for armor trait that's a static X amount of mastery for protection. Yeah. We'll see. They probably want to keep a gold sink in. Well, remember, probably able to get a lot more gold because of either the new quests or new rewards or new structures between Najatar and Mechagon, so we'll see. But that's that. That is going to be the second part of this. I did the actual 8.2 dev stream reaction, talked about some stuff after that, broke some things down. Then I did Taliesin Evitel's their 8.2 news video update, and I added a little dovetail on there for Sleuth Bag stuff that he also talked about. But that'll do it. That'll do it for this chunk.